Welcome. This is Real Healing, Real Awakening with Phil Golding.
Welcome to another episode of Real Healing, Real Awakening. This show continues on from last week's episode entitled The Power of Love, dealing with the core issues that cause us the most problems, that cause humanity the most suffering. And most importantly, how to overcome this suffering, how to free ourselves from these core confusions, what I call the ego blind spots. In the last episode, I took a deeper look at the essential, vital importance of aligning ourselves to the most powerful ideal, unconditional love, and total personal responsibility, the two supreme laws of consciousness. I also dealt with the misnomer that loving yourself unconditionally is just being selfish. I pointed out that not loving yourself unconditionally, not taking total personal responsibility to love yourself unconditionally, that is, to master your mind, to look after, to take care of, to take responsibility for your humanness, is in fact what is being selfish. To accept that responsibility, to love yourself unconditionally, to take care of your own vulnerable human self, your human mind, is essential for when it comes to raising your consciousness high enough to know how to love others unconditionally, to rise above the petty neediness of an unawakened ego. In this episode, I'm going to address the tendency of human beings to see themselves as victims. And as a part of this subject, I will be addressing the mistaken belief that healing and self-realization somehow depends on justice being done. From the positive perspective, this talk, this study, will be revealing how to regain your power, regain full control over your own life. It is about how to free yourself from being controlled by the outside world. It is about gaining the power to choose how to respond, how to live the life that you want to live, and in a way that is fulfilling, sustainable, and offering a real solution for this world. In other words, living your life in a way that is not only for the highest good of yourself, but also for the highest good of all others. This program is about setting yourself free from the crippling limitations of seeing yourself as a powerless victim of the circumstances of life. So what does it mean to be a victim? Surely people are justifiably regarded as victims. For instance, suffering a plane crash. Surely you can't control that. You are a victim of that circumstance. It is certainly too much to expect to think that we can control forces of nature, such as storms for instance, that may cause us physical harm. We may also be born with a physical or mental disability. That is certainly something that you could regard as being a victim of. What about being born in extreme poverty, in a country where corruption is rife, where drought is an everyday experience, where the resources are simply not there, where disease and war ravage the country? What of this? Surely we are a victim of this also. If you consider the philosophy of reincarnation and karma, and the journey toward enlightenment over many successions of lives that is available to all beings, then in a broader sense, even these things may be able to be brought under control in an individual's life. If you consider that this individual's life is the latest chapter in a larger soul's journey, don't think that this type of philosophy only came from the East. It has been a Western tradition also, such as in the Masonic traditions, for example the Freemasons, Co-Masons and Rosicrucians. Reincarnation, karma and enlightenment also has a vital part to play in a school of thought called Theosophy, which is a comparative study of all religions and philosophies of the world, and an integration of what is considered the best of all of these. Some of the great exponents of Theosophy over the 19th and 20th centuries are figures such as Helena Blavatsky, Colonel Henry Olcott, Annie Besant and Alice Bailey. It also has a place in some schools of Judaism and was also taught in early Christianity. There is also a reformation of the Christian message that came into being around the 1860s, which is now called Spiritism. It's very strong in certain South American countries such as Brazil, but it is known throughout the world. It was begun by a very evolved man named Allan Kardec, who was a Frenchman, and it started in France. This is Christianity, with the full wisdom teachings of enlightenment, reincarnation and karma restored to that philosophy. I have studied this philosophy and found it very powerful and profound, and it provides real answers to the deep issues and problems that we may ask in this program. Even before I discovered this tradition, I had the privilege of witnessing its power at work firsthand. A few years back I travelled to New Zealand to attend what you could call a spiritual convention, but it was really a weekend of deep metaphysical healing, conducted by a man they called John of God. This man is a Brazilian healer, one of the most powerful healers in the world, and a man of great humility and dedication to service. I found it interesting to see that he and his co-workers were deeply steeped in the Christian tradition, and yet at the same time there was this Eastern philosophical stream right through their beliefs. I was also touched by the power of their unconditional love. I have never had more powerful meditations than I had at that weekend. As a part of the healing process for others, and also ourselves, we were able to sit within a large group and meditate as an aid to the healer's work. While sitting in that group, there was such a powerful force of unconditional love running through me. I was often sitting there with tears streaming down my eyes, and the emotion even now is rising up within me. Very powerful love I felt on that weekend, and saw many people being healed and helped and lifted up in great inspiration. It was a wonderful example of the universal spirituality that is rising in the world's consciousness today. So how could we explain the sufferings that I mentioned earlier that seem so out of our control, so indiscriminate, using this type of philosophy? I ask you to indulge me here a little and allow me to set up a framework of reincarnation, karma and enlightenment using the schools of thought of Theosophy and Spiritism. I need to do this in order to have any hope of being able to explain the nature of suffering and the evolution of life and consciousness in a way that is rational, plausible and reasonable, and also offer you a reasonable framework that you can relate to in your own life, that you can tap into your own intuition, that you can see meaning in the experiences of your life. But I don't want to get too deep and broad and cosmic with this. I want to soon get back down to the brass tacks of our everyday life, and how, as an average human being on this planet, we can take more control of our life. However, this framework that I will lay out for you now will be a good introduction for deeper subjects that I will address on the subject of self-mastery in weeks to come. Be aware also that this is simply a framework. It is not something I expect you to dogmatically believe, nor do I believe it in that way myself. My understandings are always evolving as I evolve. My view of life, the universe and everything is like a jigsaw puzzle. The pieces are kept reasonably loose, just in case I find a piece that fits in more harmoniously with the others. Particularly as I evolve, I am able to perceive on more powerful levels. I certainly believe in the absolute truth of unconditional love and total personal responsibility, but our understanding of how to apply these truths and the frameworks that encapsulate these truths are something that is always evolving in the human mind. I do not believe we have the ability to fully comprehend them as yet in this period of our humanity's evolution, if you like. To turn a philosophical framework, no matter how inspired it may be, into some religious dogma is regarded as a trap. We are then limited, prevented from being able to see beyond this, to evolve into perhaps a more enlightened way of seeing things. When we fall into such a trap as dogmatism, we tend to try to stuff life, the universe and everything into our dogmatic framework, rather than step back and let life teach us what is. So instead, I just encourage you to try this framework on for size. Put it on like a pair of glasses or a coat and walk around in it for a while. Look at the world through these glasses. See what it looks like. See what answers come up for you. The usefulness of a framework is to enable you to perceive more of what is. So let's begin with the subject of reincarnation. I do not subscribe to certain Eastern schools that regard reincarnation as continuing on for eons and eons. In regards to the information I have come to know and the evidence that I have gathered over the years, this type of thought I think leads to a sense of hopelessness and perhaps apathy in the masses who follow such philosophies. Likewise, the belief that we can be reborn back into the animal kingdom due to bad karma. I have found no evidence that would support this. What I have come to understand is that the cycle of death and rebirth in and out of this physical realm has a definite period of time attached to it and is of a definite purpose. You could give a rough estimate of time being, say, 1 to 200,000 years. From the point of entry into samsara, which is a term used to describe this cycle of death and rebirth, and finally to one's last life at a level of enlightenment that will give you the power to finally break this cycle and to transcend into a more grander vista of existence, and therefore remain in the spiritual realm. Of course, this length of time that I have suggested is just to give you a rough idea. There is apparently a lot of leeway from individual to individual when it comes to the length of time to reach final enlightenment. It may be interesting to note that humanity is considered to be on average quite young in soul age. I am also regarding this length of time as only pertaining to the human evolution, and not some perhaps prior evolution, such as in the animal kingdom for instance, that then leads to a human form. The purpose of reincarnation, of death and rebirth, is for the purpose of the soul's evolution. It is not relevant to our physical human body mind, the ego, who does not relate to life beyond this single physical experience of survival, which gives the human being really two levels of perception, one as a physical survival entity seeking comfort, the other as a cosmic form of soul or spirit seeking evolution and beyond. When soul first enters this physical realm, this physical journey of evolution from life to life, it is at first dominated by this physical form that it unites with. The ego and the physical survival instincts are in control, and through the added consciousness that the soul gives, enters into a higher, more dynamic, more powerful evolutionary journey from life to life. The added consciousness of the soul, if you like, pushes the human being away from the animal kingdom into self-consciousness, where it can no longer depend on only animal instincts, which are just simply merged with the nature of the physical earth. Human beings, therefore, have to, through their power of perception and analytical ability, have to figure it out for themselves, which leads to the potential of far more confusion, far more suffering, and, through ignorance, far more destructive tendencies than an animal would have to experience. So off we go on our journey, starting from, say, a caveman level, to simply trying to survive on rudimentary levels, but life after life, gaining more evolvement. In every life, what is gained and what remains, whether through deliberate understanding or simply accidental experience, is consciousness. Consciousness is our storehouse of knowing, which places us on a more aware, more powerful evolutionary position from life to life. Inevitably, through our journey of evolution, we have evolved to a point where we are highly integrated on a physical, emotional and mental level. We are highly creative and dynamic individuals. But we are still dominated by our human ego, and are still quite ignorant of the higher forces within us on a spiritual level, even if we happen to hold spiritual or religious beliefs. What this significant level of evolution does give us is the ability to look back at ourselves and start to try to really evolve ourselves purposefully, consciously. We start to realize that we are our own worst enemy. When things go wrong, it's our own thoughts and attitudes that get in the way. So at first we're trying to evolve our mind, master ourself, not for necessarily spiritual or enlightened purposes, but really in order to have that more powerful job, get more money, have more sex, have more status, all of those sorts of things. But nevertheless, a level of self-mastery is being displayed. This is a particularly important stage of evolution for the soul, because it means that this physical entity, this body-mind, is ready to be taken over on a spiritual level. And also it means that the soul is now evolved, experienced and powerful enough in consciousness to do this. So the next series of lives are when real spiritual awakenings occur. Old beliefs, old perceptions of the world start to crumble, and a larger vista of knowing, of sensitivity, of awareness begins to emerge. The bigger picture that the soul is able to carry begins to register in the human mind. This is very difficult at first. It's a hard transition. All that we thought was real, all that we thought we know, begins to somehow seem meaningless. It all becomes futile. Instead of being focused on our own selfish little world, we start to see the suffering all around us. We start to literally feel it. It begins to horrify us. We can feel on this bigger, intuitive, collective level, and we have to somehow come to grips with it. Our suffering on a more personal level can become more acute as well. Our old habits that may carry us along in the ego world are no longer sustainable with this new spiritual awareness, this sensitivity, even though we are not necessarily at first registering it as something spiritual. There's a sensitivity, a deeper need for meaning, a dissatisfaction in the old ways that emerges, and we start to experience periods of time which are called things like breakdowns, dark nights of the soul, identity crises, and so on. These are very important transition stages from ego consciousness to soul consciousness, and many people today are experiencing this, increasingly in fact, because young souls are now merging into more mature and old soul stages, where the soul itself is starting to break through as the dominant managing force in the human life. The soul, in fact, is beginning to emerge out of the chrysalis, cocoon, or egg, if you like, as it's often symbolized, of the human ego. It's breaking out of it, and the ego is crumbling. This is getting towards the latter stages of the soul's journey. Of course, there is plenty of suffering to be had before the soul begins to emerge through the egg or cocoon of the ego. In fact, this emergence, even in the beginning stages, represents one of the latter stages of the cycle of death and rebirth of samsara. All the way along that cycle, we are slowly but surely building a reserve of knowing, intuitive knowledge, that gives us resilience, ability, power, flexibility, sensitivity and awareness in the face of life's challenges. Before that resilience is built up, however, we do really feel like that victim, because the suffering just doesn't seem to have any meaning. We just seem like a pawn in life's bigger game, with no real sense of power or understanding of how to get by, other than our base instincts, our scratching for that survival. The emergence of the soul through the ego gives us an added element of awareness, however. The awareness that the intuitive knowing of the soul gives us enables us to recognize a bigger picture, a larger purpose to this suffering. And we start to comprehend, to sense, to feel that the evolution of consciousness is the major importance of this experience. We see that our human body-mind is simply a vehicle for our experience of consciousness. We actually then begin to seek out or look for those challenges that will expand our consciousness, because the power, the awareness, a capability that the peace, the strength that this added consciousness gives us begins to be the reward for facing life's challenges. The endless chase for sense gratification and continuous materialism becomes empty. It feels unsatisfactory. It has no fulfillment left in it. We want the peace that we can feel emerging through our soul. We want to feel and experience the power of self-mastery, to be free of suffering and confusion. And we start to have a knowing, a faith, that this is indeed possible. Inevitably, though, the soul is able to get a grip on the physical body-mind, and higher levels of self-mastery start to be attained. We are able to, at this level, really start to take control of our thoughts and feelings. Our will becomes a dominant factor, serving higher consciousness. The ultimate principles of cosmic consciousness, unconditional love and total personal responsibility definitely become the guiding light and acquired ability of souls on this level. The focus now is not so much on one's own suffering. The personality is now quite steady, not because they have everything that they want, such as the soul that is on the last stages of ego ascendancy. It is because they are steeped in the Dharma, the wisdom, the knowledge of spiritual law. They are at peace, doesn't matter what's going on around them, and they are able to make the most of any situation that they find themselves. But their motivation now is more service. Their natural desire is to help other souls. They see the purpose, the Holy Grail, the point at the end of their journey is enlightenment, but they also see that their enlightenment is everybody's enlightenment. It is a way of understanding that overcoming their suffering is achieved by helping others overcome theirs. The efforts of service becomes the learning experience for souls at this level, and it's this experience that consummates the final lives that create, achieve and allow the soul to finally leave the cycle of samsara. They are enlightened masters, and the cosmos is now their home. This explains the different levels of awareness, the different capabilities and capacities that make up the variety of humanity. This also explains why a certain challenge may crush one individual, whilst another may find it an exciting opportunity. All is experience, however. All goes towards the evolution of the soul. For the soul, a particular life is but a brief experience, a temporary assignment, having less importance in the bigger picture of the entire soul's journey. But for the body-mind and its ego, an individual life is of paramount importance, and it is entirely identified in this life. The soul, on the other hand, free enough in its own consciousness within the physical experience, can see beyond the bounds of a single physical life. The soul begins its journey, therefore, like an infant begins a single physical life. It is the essence of unconditional love. It is the essence of life itself. But it is ignorant, it is innocent, it is lacking conscious awareness. The experience of descending into the physical realm and being united with a physical body-mind, with its instinctual drives, desires, physical needs, fears and vulnerability. This is similar to being a babe born into physical life, in an individual life. The soul is at first overwhelmed by this, lost in this, and fully identifies with this. All that remains is its potential, its spiritual power, driving it forward to something greater, to survive but beyond survival, to dominate, to conquer, to overcome. Also, the soul cannot die, but it loses touch with this greater power that it has. The body-mind is mortal, vulnerable, at peril, at every step. This creates a vitalness to the experience, an intensity that forges consciousness, that creates a deep and powerful awareness of the nature, the laws of life. To survive, to overcome these limitations, this fear, this vulnerability, the body-mind, with the greater power of the soul working through it, must comprehend these laws on fundamental, rudimentary levels at first, but as the intelligence grows, as the capabilities expand, the ability to feel and act as the master of this realm grows in accordance. The soul matures, just as an adult matures during an individual physical life. Smaller cycles within larger cycles are a part of life's dynamic, life's great mystery. Conscious awareness, therefore, is the purpose of life, and a master soul, powerful in that awareness, is a powerful creator, a powerful commander of physical experience, of the ability to know itself as unconditional love, as the power to take responsibility for any challenge, any endeavour. Ye are gods, ye are children of the Most High, as Christ said. We are apprentice gods in a way. We are beings learning how to be creators. And so all the experiences, all the sufferings, all the injustices, all the hardships, all the wonder and the beauty are a part of the soul's growing up. For the ego, identified and a part of this physical body-mind experience, all this suffering, all this hardship, all this inequality, and appearing injustice and unfairness seems unfathomable, seems absurd, horrifying, abominable. It's okay as long as you're on top of the heap, but if you're under the hammer of hardship and limitation, the ego naturally resents its experience and finds it difficult to comprehend the purpose of life. The physical body-mind comes and goes. It ends with each individual physical life. But the soul, having gathered the conscious awareness that it gained from that particular life's experience, no matter how hard or perhaps how joyous, it marches on to greater and more wondrous things. So where then does karma fit into this? In Buddhism, karma is simply described as cause and effect. It is the inevitable consequence of a human action. However, to understand the workings of karma, even on a rudimentary level, you have to stand back a long, long way to see a very big picture indeed. Karma is often seen as punishment. We see that person suffering hardship. They must be reaping the consequences of bad karma. They must have done something really bad in their last life, and now they're being punished. This perception of karma is a mistake. Karma is in fact a fundamental part of the universal life force of unconditional love. The purpose of karma, in fact, is like a guiding parent, guiding us back to the home, to the sanctuary, to the safety of God consciousness. It is also a mistake to see karma as the cause of all suffering. The cause of suffering is ultimately the choices that we make that are out of tune with the higher laws of consciousness. That power of choice may be the cause of suffering due to ignorance and pride, etc. But choice can also be the power that enables us to transcend suffering, to break its grip on our life. In other words, it is not what happens to us, it is how we choose to deal with it on mental levels, how we choose to take care of our mind, to work with it on a mind level. That is the power that every individual has, regardless of life circumstances. Even if some malevolent force, such as a dictator, may hold sway over a whole population, his actions or her actions may set up conditions of suffering for an entire population. Every individual in that population has the potential to face that situation with courage, fortitude and equanimity. That tyrant, in a broader sense, is offering every individual an opportunity to master the challenges of life. Of course, many will suffer and even be crushed by that experience in this particular life. However, that experience goes in their storehouse of consciousness to give karma more to work with in their next lives. Karma is an overarching force of guidance that surrounds this journey of consciousness that every soul experiences. During our physical life, we are basically free to live our life, to make our choices as we will. Karma does not interfere with those choices within an individual's life. The place of karma is in between lives. An individual life, once finished, is assessed, if you like, as to how in tune or out of tune it is with those high laws of consciousness that I mentioned earlier. Unconditional love, total personal responsibility. There is no condemnation or judgment or fires of hell or gates of heaven. These are some of the mistaken dogmas of organized religion. But even these uninsightful dogmas have seeds of truth reflected in them. As I mentioned before, this assessment is purely in terms of guidance. It is to prevent the soul from becoming lost into certain tendencies, of creating deep habits of thought that just simply keep taking it in the wrong direction. Therefore, within an individual's life, we are free to make our own decisions, good or bad, which is often why people of great intelligence but with little moral fibre are able to get away with so much injustice. We watch as malevolent dictators grow into a ripe old age and die untouched, never being brought to trial. But rest assured, that is where their freedom to go against the accords of the laws of nature ends. Within an individual physical life, we are given free will. This is sovereign. We are free to run from truth as far as we like and as long as we like, depending on the forces of other people around us and whether they're able to put a stop to that or not, because everyone else has a free will as well. But once that physical life has ended and we are now purely in the realm of soul, we may still have a free will, because the free will is truly at the soul level. We are definitely face to face with God, and we are face to face with the overarching laws that are controlling our ultimate journey. One's actions are then weighed and balanced, and what happens next depends on the level of consciousness of the individual. If, as that soul who is being assessed, I am a young soul of little experience, of little intuitive knowing, therefore little awareness, I am still an ignorant babe, then I am more likely simply going to be tossed back down into samsara in order to gain more of life's experience. What will be set up as a part of that experience, however, are certain limitations. They may be physical, they may be having to face certain other souls who have an agenda that may interfere with my life's path. There may be various challenges that are there waiting for me, in accordance to the karma and the destiny of other souls. For everything is one, and all souls are coordinated together. So karma sets up a certain degree of predestiny for me, but I am free to deal with that challenge the best I can. And my choices are going to determine the quality of my experience. The more I accept and work with my karma, if you like, the less of a burden it will be on my life. The more I resist it, the more suffering I will experience. All will aid my awareness once I am finished with that life and the soul assessing what that experience meant for me, in conjunction with the mind of God. If, however, I am a much more evolved soul with intelligence and awareness, but perhaps little moral fibre, which is another level of intelligence, emotional intelligence as it's often called these days, then my experience is going to be quite different. The mind of God, if you like, karma, has much more to work with. It has my awareness, it has my intelligence, and it can use that to great effect. I am less likely to be tossed down into physical life straight away. What will occur, in fact, is I will, on a mental level, on a soul level, have to experience every single harm I have committed to another person, not as some hell realm, not as some punishment, but for the sake of awareness, for the sake of awakening. It may feel like hell, but it's the hell of my own creation, and it's only a temporary hell at that. I will literally become that person. I will feel what they feel, experience what they feel, from their perspective, from their pain, from their fear, from their vulnerability. The purpose of this would be to shatter my pride, to break down the illusion that I can somehow compete with God, to break down the illusion that I am somehow more privileged, more grander, more entitled than other human beings. This experience is made possible because I have now developed the level of intelligent awareness to be able to comprehend the meaning and purpose of such a powerful learning experience. inevitably my pride will break down. And as a soul, I will begin to ask to be taught another way. I will, through my learnt humility, gain the opportunity to be lifted up, to see a bigger picture of life, to comprehend the power of love and the ultimate intelligence of love and the ultimate purpose of love. Through my intelligence and awareness and newfound humility, I will recognize the truth and become a willing servant of that truth. I will see that the path of love is the ultimate path for all beings, myself and all those that I influence. I will have, in fact, found heaven, a heaven created out of my own awakened choices. Even though I may have been a tyrant in a particular life, being a tyrant, a successful one at that, requires a lot of intelligence, a lot of awareness, which gives karma a lot to work with. When I enter my next physical life, I will have a very different mindset indeed. There will be two goals that I will be pursuing. One will be my ultimate enlightenment. The other will be to burn off the karma that I have gained due to my past actions. It is not enough just to wake up on some mental level. It has to be burnt into my consciousness through physical experience. I'm not really a tyrant. I was just speaking hypothetically. I just thought I'd remind you of that, just in case you'd forgotten. I gave you examples of two ends of the spectrum there. A soul that is very unaware, that would simply have their experience arranged for them, and a soul that is very aware, yet lacking in moral fibre, that has not developed that emotional intelligence. The experience of that soul will be a joint co-creative experience, one that will be worked out by themselves in conjunction with the mind of God. Because the more evolved you become, the more aware you are of the purpose of your own journey and where it needs to go for your highest good and the highest good of all beings, at least on the level of your intuitive soul consciousness. Of course, there is not just bad karma, there is also good karma as well, and combinations of both in an individual's life. What you sow, ye shall reap. Jesus was not kidding when he said that, and Buddha pointed out very clearly, along with every other great teacher and master, the obviousness of this reality. But it is obvious to them because they're aware of life on this bigger level. They can see beyond the individual physical life into the greater soul's journey. I hope this explanation of reincarnation, enlightenment and karma has been useful to you. It may take you a while to absorb it if it's something that is new for you. Like I said, you may have to walk around in it for a while, but I encourage you not to reject it out of hand, but to contemplate on it, observe it, look at life through those glasses and see if it makes sense, see if things are a little bit clearer. So let's have a look at how you can work with your life within this framework of cosmic guidance, if you like. Be aware also of the previous shows that I have done, particularly the first 3, which is about the 5-step process for wisdom, healing and empowerment. What I am speaking of here is an extension of that. So how to break the spell of believing we are a victim and gain back our power of life, or gain it for the first time? The very crux of developing this power is to understand that you are totally responsible for your life. You have absolute authority over everything you think, feel, do and say. This is something the ego does not like to accept. When we are throwing our tantrums, when we are angry, resentful, falling into self-pity, we are expecting somebody else to take responsibility for our mind. We are placing ourselves in the position of a child. We are placing the power of our life in somebody else's hands. We are withholding from our life the potential of that power that will inevitably set us free. Of course, the ego is ingrained in habit, and those habits are very hard to break. But we must start with the acceptance of the validity of the higher laws of consciousness, unconditional love, and total personal responsibility. And we must accept that the power of those laws are available to us in our life right here, right now. What it takes is a commitment to those laws, to do the very best that I can, for instance, to be the representative of unconditional love and total personal responsibility. I start that by taking responsibility for my own human mind. Your problems may seem insurmountable, your confusion unfathomable, and yet none of this can be overcome if we don't take any action whatsoever. If we continue to stay in self-pity, to stay negative, to not believe that there are any ways or any answers, then that is going to be our reality, because that is what we will continue to create. We don't realize how powerful we are at creating our life. Every thought that we think, if it's passionate and consistent, it is creating more of itself in our life. It is bringing to it more of itself in our life. And believe me, thoughts such as resentment and self-pity are very passionate and tend to be quite consistent and are very powerful creators of what we often mistakenly call bad luck. To change this negative momentum, you must put something different in the mix. And by focusing on a process for personal change that encapsulates the laws of unconditional love and total personal responsibility, you are placing the most powerful ingredient for change in that mix, in your mind, in other words. Of course, it's going to take a while to comprehend the deeper meaning of these laws. Of course, it's going to take a while to take effect in your life, where you are really seeing, feeling, experiencing some freedom, some relief from your suffering, from your limitations, from the unsatisfactoriness of your life. You are not going to learn these laws, however, you are not going to experience these changes if you do not show up for the lesson every day, if you do not continue on with the course of self-mastery. This is the university of life. You are not going to pass the test without having the knowledge. It's just simply not going to be handed to you on a platter. Life is not like that. We have to qualify for those things that we earn. Now you may think that is very unfair and unjust, but there is no one on this planet that those laws do not apply to. So what is, and it's time to accept it and start working with it. Yes, but, says the ego, what about that person over there? His life seems to be effortless. He doesn't have to suffer. He's got everything he wants. Look, he's got that big flash car, that big house. His kids seem to be happy. He doesn't seem to have any problems. And look at me, all this limitation, all this suffering, all these things going wrong in my life. Comparison in this way is a very self-defeating thing. We really do not know what the bigger picture is in regards to how things are unfolding for you or for another person. The one who seems to have everything in this material life is in a particular cycle in their soul's journey. They may simply be finishing off a cycle of learning. Now they're just demonstrating the things that they have learned. Perhaps they will be challenging themselves in the lives that come on a new cycle of learning. Perhaps you are on a cycle of learning right now. It is pointless comparing yourself to others in this negative way. It is only your life that you are here to live, and it is only you who can make the most of it, whatever the circumstances that you are faced with. Having material success is not what's important for the soul. It may be what your ego wants, who is part of your physical self. That is only about survival. That is only about comfort. But it won't necessarily bring you an expanded consciousness. It will not necessarily bring you any closer to those ultimate laws of unconditional love and total personal responsibility. This is where the real rewards lie. This is the ultimate treasure in life. This is the fulfillment that never dies, that never fades, that only grows in its power and depth. Interestingly enough, the more you accept those laws, accept your opportunity and responsibility to be the representative of those laws and embrace your human mind with them, you will be in a better position to, in fact, be materially successful, but in a way where you will be less and less dependent on that. You will be, in fact, free whether you're materially successful or not. You will just simply be more skillful in the way that you can live your life. A consciousness that is steeped in these ultimate laws of life, it has a power that transcends any attachment around material gratification. An awakened consciousness does not reject the material either. It simply uses it skillfully for its own good, for its highest good, in a way that it doesn't get trapped in it. It is free, it is the master of that experience. And because of that lack of attachment, because of the centeredness in what is important in life, it is at peace whether it has material possessions or doesn't have material possessions. Our consciousness on this level is free. Step 1 in the 5-step process is acceptance. I begin with the notion of self-acceptance, but acceptance in its full spectrum is absolutely essential. Here is my life, however unsatisfactory it may be, and yet this is what is. If I resist it, it's not going to make it go away. It will just simply make it harder for me to work with it. I will throw away the potential of the power that is within me. When I accept it, open my arms to it, I don't have to like it, but I need to work with it. I need to step up and have a look at the way I am facing my day on a day-to-day basis. Acceptance is the first place to start. I have to enter into a relationship with the experience that is in front of me. There's no point rejecting it. There's no point being resentful, self-pity. All those sorts of things are my ego being like a child. A child is looking for somebody else to take responsibility, is looking for a mummy or a daddy to take over, to rescue me. I'm an adult now, you're an adult, it is up to you. That might seem hard, but the power is in you, and that is a part of the acceptance also. Accepting that you are a human being. If you are a human being with a functioning mind, then you also have the power. Unconditional love, total personal responsibility, the universal life force of power is at your disposal, and it comes through you. It's evoked through your own mind and your own life, through your positive acceptance of life, rolling up your sleeves, stepping up and doing your best to work with it. So acceptance is an essential key. Taking total personal responsibility, ownership of your life is also a key. That is ownership of your mind. You must understand that your life is your mind. It's created by your mind. What you're living in today, you created yesterday. Certainly other people have had a hand in this creation, but the way you've reacted to that, responded to that, the way you've believed in yourself or not believed in yourself, the way you've treated yourself, honoured yourself or dishonoured yourself, that has been the key to creating the circumstances that you are in right now. You can therefore take control of this, take responsibility for this, learn what it takes in order to start to create something different today. Acceptance and personal responsibility. The other one is to love yourself unconditionally. That is the acceptance, but moving into a deeper healing level of that acceptance, you have a right to be human. You have a right to make those mistakes. Where our mind is full of habit, it is ingrained in conditioning that we were powerless to control as a child, but you're an adult now. As an adult, We have the potential of consciousness now available to us. Therefore, we can face ourselves, open our heart to ourselves, accept ourselves as we are. We are human. We have a right to be human. It's not our fault for being human, but it's our responsibility as conscious awareness, as soul, to take responsibility for this humanness, which also contains all the seeds of our past lives. Embrace yourself, take care of yourself, reach out for help, find ways to heal that pain within you. Your pain is your pain. Your thoughts and emotions belong to you. They're created by your own mind, your attitudes, your thoughts, even if they're ingrained old conditioning. What you think now, the way you treat yourself now is going to recondition those old habits. You are dealing with, taking care of, transforming all those old negative seeds of the past, let's say, of past lives, by taking responsibility and loving yourself unconditionally right now, today. Another key factor which is highlighted in step 4 of the process is live this one day. In reality, and I will probably talk about this later on in another show, there is no yesterday, there is no past, there is no future. That is all mind. Past is memory. It's in your mind. The future is a projection of what might be. That is in your mind. There is only now. What you do with now. There is only today. Break it up in this one day. Your future is what you do with today. Is your attitude today. That is your future. Do you understand that? It's very important to comprehend that. Your attitude today, if repeated tomorrow and then the next day and then the next day and then the next day, is what creates your future. Therefore, to turn your life around, you need to align yourself to those ultimate laws of consciousness, unconditional love and total personal responsibility. Do your best to heal your pain, your confusion, learn about the right ways to go about your life according to those higher principles, and then live every day in the now. Do your best to accept, work with, take care of what's in front of you right now, one day at a time. Letting go as much as you can, over and over and over and over again, all those negative, futile thoughts of trying to control things you simply cannot control, such as worry and regret and resentfulness and self-pity. Won't take you anywhere. Comparing yourself with others in a negative way, utterly futile. You have the power, it is your life, and you invoke the power of that higher life force through you by taking full responsibility for your life and being a representative of unconditional love to your own human self, as best you humanly can, day in, day out. It doesn't matter how not very good at it you are. You just do your best. You show up every day and you will get better at it. It's inevitable. We grow. That's the way it is as a human being. We learn, we grow. Through that growing, we know more, we can do more with it, but we have to keep turning up with those principles in mind. They are your teacher. They are the life force. They will guide you. That is karma. That is what it's really about, to set you free. And in the same vein, do not worry about injustices. Certainly, we do our best to try to make justice happen. We do our best to do the right thing and to ensure others do the right thing. But our own healing, our own life, our own moving forward does not depend on that. You have the power over your own life, your own mind, regardless of what others may do or not do for you or to you. Your peace of mind, your equanimity, your joy, your moving forward on a daily basis depends on no one but yourself and the choices that you make. It may take some time to clear away the rubble that has been created due to past thoughts and actions, but inevitably you will be able to change your life if you follow a process such as this. And never, ever, ever give up. no matter how many mistakes you make, never give up. Forgive yourself, accept yourself, let others go. Get on with doing the best you can. Never give up. Success, fulfillment is inevitable. That concludes this episode of Real Healing, Real Awakening. I hope it's been of benefit to you. The little music clips that you've been hearing are from, of course, Van Morrison and his wonderful album, A Sense of Wonder. In last week's show, you would have heard Earthstar from their album Being in Love, and Peter Gabriel from his album Us. The beautiful intro that you hear with each show is from a husband and wife team called Sacred Earth, and they are from my neck of the woods here in Queensland, Australia. All these artists are people who live and work from their conscious awareness, and their music, their songs, often reflect their own journey of consciousness. And please feel free to make use of the other episodes that are available on the podcast on this site. They are there, packed full of information designed to be listened to over and over again. Real Healing, Real Awakening is for your transformation and inspiration. It is designed to help you change your life. Also, email me if you have any questions that you wish me to address in the show. And make use of my website. It has much information that you can read and download, and there are books that I have written as well that you may want to purchase at some time. You will find the web address on my page in this website. There will be another episode available to you to tune into next week. Be a guardian angel to yourself, and love will always warm your heart. For wisdom is intelligent love in action.